Hey everyone, Amber Gray, founder and CEO at Trusty Oak. We are an Austin, Texas-based virtual assistant company, and we partner with freelance virtual assistants based in the United States and serve small to medium-sized businesses as well as remote-first teams. Today I want to talk about the topics of building trust within a remote team. It's a little bit more challenging with remote teams than it is with people, when you have your team in-house. You have a few more challenges to overcome, but there are some great ways to be able to build trust within your team even when you're not in the same location. Last month, I had a month-long adventure of travel and tried out the whole digital nomad type lifestyle. And first I was in Croatia on a vacation, and then next I went to Hamburg, Germany to visit a friend for a couple of weeks, and then I finished off the trip in Bali, and the last 2 days of that trip was capped off with the Running Remote Conference. They brought in the top leaders of remote companies and distributed teams to talk about strategy and ways that they are serving their remote teams and leading their remote teams. Through that, there was really some common threads, and for me, maybe because I'm a little biased to the idea of trust being Trusty Oak, but I really saw that a lot of the speakers were talking about how trust and transparency was absolutely key to the success of their remote teams. So through that, I found 3 key points that help you to build trust within a remote team. So I want to dig into that into this video. I guess one of the most important overarching points of the whole thing is that you have to be intentional about building trust and transparency within your team. It's not something that's going to happen naturally, and like I said earlier, we really do have some additional challenges when we're running remote teams. The biggest thing about this is that you can avoid burnout if you follow some of these tips to further develop trust within your team. If you can't trust your team and you feel like you have to micromanage and oversee every little thing, you are going to burn out. You cannot sustain at that pace. So this is key for your own personal sanity as much as it is for the overall success of your business. Okay, number 1, you want to create standards both for your communication methods and the tools you use. What I mean by that, and actually I've talked about this before in my Mastering the Art of Delegation video that I did a few months ago, but you want to talk about with your team what methods should be used for various levels of importance or urgency. So that means determining how you want to use the different apps of communication. So how and when do you want to use email? How and when do you want to use Slack, phone calls, text, Zoom? There's all these tools that we can use, and it helps if you're able to outline best practices and rules, a policy for how you want to use those tools within your team. If everyone knows how these tools are supposed to be used, you're going to be able to kind of compartmentalize different levels of urgency and importance, like I was saying. So different tools for different things you need, and create a process and standard for how you want those tools used. Some other key tips I learned were regarding meetings. So there's a debate about which is going to be more productive, either asynchronous communication or synchronous communication. Async means everyone's not necessarily collaborating at the same time. You work when you need to work. You may be on the other side of the world. You need to be able to get your work done without being blocked by someone else. So there's processes in place to make that possible. Synchronous is more meetings and a lot of collaboration throughout the day, working in real time. There's benefits to both sides, and I won't get into that debate at this point, but if you are going to have meetings, it's absolutely critical that you do set an agenda before that meeting if you want to make the best use of that time. So that's one of the big rules or takeaways that I had, was always have an agenda if you're going to set a meeting. Don't default to 1 hour either. I always default to a 30-minute meeting. If I think it's going to need to run longer than that, then I'll set a 45-minute meeting, but I almost never set a 1-hour meeting with any of my teammates, because it's usually what we can do, or we're usually able to do what we need to do in less time. Another thing about meetings, it's a good idea to have at least one day where there are no meetings. You need a day to be able to catch up and really get some focus time in. And if everyone's assuming that they can book a meeting with you at any point, and that goes for within your team, not just with the leader, it can get really hard to get things done. So set a no meeting day where you can catch up on things. I do that on Wednesday. That way I have that middle of the day or middle of the week opportunity to make sure I'm on track to get things done for the end of the week. Okay, point number 2, document your processes. This is something that's going to take some time and effort, most definitely, but it is well worth it. You've got to take the time to document how you do things. I definitely recommend doing that by video because it's going to be easier for you to set up a library that people can search through. I'm also using within Trusty Oak something with Google Sites. So we're creating an intranet essentially within Google Sites that's searchable so that people can search a keyword and find the topic that they want to find training on or a how-to in terms of a policy or standard. So you want to have documentation like that. If you're on a budget, I do recommend Google Sites. If you've got a little bit more money to spend, Trainual is an excellent tool to be able to easily, as they say, get your business out of your brain and put it into a documented format that's going to be easy for all of your teammates to find what they're looking for. So how does documenting your processes build trust? Well, for one, it gives them the ability to make decisions on your behalf without you involved. You're empowering them to do what they need to do without having to ask you questions and use you as a decision maker. Let them make their own decisions. That's going to empower trust between you and them and within the company, but it's also going to help you be more productive as well, and like I said earlier, avoid burnout. The last point is don't forget to have fun. This was something that was kind of, again, a theme throughout a lot of the topics, a lot of different speakers that we're talking about was about having fun and looking for ways to connect members of your team that are not in the same location. There's tools that you can use to make this a little bit easier. I've written a blog post that's got a few more details, but you want to be intentional about creating moments that are not work related for your team to get together. One thing I did notice is that no matter what, as much as we all love remote, having the chance to be in person with each other once or twice a year really seems like something important to most teams. So whatever you do, think about that when if you are thinking about going remote, you want to build in some budget for getting your team together in person from time to time. Another thing you can do is set up Zoom happy hours where you're spending time together with no agenda, just having fun, relaxing together. Use Slack channels to do things that are fun and not work related. There's all kinds of apps too that can kind of like randomly match you up with other members of your team, so you could set up a one-to-one or maybe do a virtual coffee, that kind of thing. There's all kinds of ways, and you do have to get pretty creative, but it is possible and it is a great way to build trust within your team. So there you have it. Running a remote team or even leading a remote virtual assistant is not always easy, and there's definitely some challenges associated with that. But if you are intentional about creating opportunities for building trust, and if you are process driven and willing to document those processes, and of course don't forget to have fun, then I think that the benefits are going to outweigh those challenges even more. If you're interested in more tips on leading remote teams or best practices for delegating, especially to a remote worker, sign up for our email newsletter. We do put out content every month on our blog and via our newsletter, our YouTube channel, videos like this. Our mission is to help remote leaders get the most out of their experience with working with their remote team. So stay tuned for more information. Let us know if there's a topic you'd like to hear more about. Thanks so much.